On today's episode of 3 Down Development, we're going to look at how you can use unbalanced formations in a variety of ways in a Canadian offense, and how that, especially on a Canadian field with Canadian opportunities to motion, puts the defense in some really challenging situations that they're not used to defending. So this first clip gives us a really good definition of what I call an unbalanced formation. A lot of people talk about having an unbalanced line. You'll notice here that the O-line is actually totally balanced. They got their normal left tackle to right tackle, 2 guys on either side of the center. And so it's not your prototypical unbalanced line or unbalanced formation where there's 3 offensive linemen on one side of the center. What you will notice is that the receivers are set up in such a way that all the receivers end up on one side of the formation. So whether that's through motion, or whether that's by alignment, here we have our 3 receivers at the bottom of the screen. They're aligned there. Not all 3 of them are eligible. We'll get to that in a second. But you have no split out or tight end or anything on the line of scrimmage into the boundary here. So we have our 2 backs who are obviously eligible. We also have our boundary tackle who's eligible in this case as the end man on the line of scrimmage. The end man on the line of scrimmage at the bottom of the screen, the wide out there, is eligible. The next inside man is actually not eligible. So this receiver here is not the end man on the line of scrimmage, and he's on the line of scrimmage. Therefore, just like the guards and center, he is ineligible. Okay, and then our slot on that side is obviously eligible. So when we take a look at a formation like this, it presents certain problems to a defense that they're not used to defending. Defenses in general, as they cover down and align to formations, in most situations, they don't want to leave a ton of space in any one area of the field that the offense can maybe move into, motion into, or try and get the ball into. And they also don't want to leave any number of receivers without someone covered down on them. So what I mean by that is we typically see as the receivers align, secondary players and linebackers will align based on how many numbers of receivers are on each side of the formation. So like you see here, there are 4 DBs aligned on these 3 receivers. Okay? The thing that defenses want to make sure that they always have is one more player than the defense can block theoretically in every part of the field. Now, based on your alignment as an offense, you can take away their ability to do that and then pick on the decision that they make. So here we have a 2-back set, so we have a fullback in the blocking surface, so we have 7 available gaps. You'll see here as a defense, even though this receiver is not eligible, they have 4 defensive backs aligned over those 3 receivers. Now, whether that's a bust or whether they're just wanting to make sure that Ohio State's not able to use these guys as blockers and run behind those numbers to the perimeter, or whether that's them just wanting to make sure that they can be in some sort of zone alignment where they have 4 defenders and 3 receivers. Either way, they have the numbers covered down fairly well to the perimeter to the field. And you'll see they've left this corner, theoretically, I guess, responsible for this boundary tackle, covering this space. Now, this brings me to a big point and something I want to get across, especially on a Canadian field. That boundary is huge, right? If you take the receivers over here, these 3, and we're forcing the defense to cover them with 4 guys, that's leaving very few players left to defend the boundary space, particularly if you can read one of those defenders, say with an RPO, or read the defensive end, maybe bring blockers into that space. So even though we don't have any players there, it's a very valuable space for the offense because there is so much room and so few defenders. And here we see the defense leaving an extra defender. They have a linebacker and a defensive back of some kind left in that space because they don't want this linebacker to have to work in this entire big boundary, right? That's going to create tough tackling situations, bad angles, and an advantage for the offense. So what we see here is they want to have 4-on-3 to the field. They want to leave players in that boundary space. Creates a situation where they only really have 6 defenders in the box. And if we're able to especially read one of those defenders, we can really take advantage of that decision and outman them in the box at the point of attack. So here we see it's kind of like an outside zone with a little ISO or insert block from that fullback. Now, to me, if I'm looking at this picture, and, maybe this is the first time they ran this play, different look, but this fullback really doesn't block anybody. if you imagine him doing a better job of inserting into this blocking scheme, maybe blocking this front side linebacker, creates great angles in the box for us to block the other 5 defenders with that offensive line. And we could even have a better result than we see here. So when teams cover the space and the numbers, they're going to give you numbers in the box. And that's what we see Ohio State taking advantage of here. Good hard 8-yard first down run. Here Auburn's in a very similar formation. They have a tight end to the field along with that fullback. He's covered. What I mean by that is he's not the end man on the line of scrimmage. This receiver is. So he's ineligible, but he is creating a gap in the blocking scheme. And again, our boundary tackle is eligible as an eligible receiver. We see here, they're pretty good in the box in terms of numbers. Right, we got our 4 down linemen, and with the extra 2 gaps being created by the fullback and the tight end, we see an extra 2 linebackers come in the box. And here they're really balancing out the front. The last one we saw, they left a linebacker and a defensive backside, making sure that there wasn't as much space there. Here we're going to see Auburn take advantage of a different look where really they don't have that extra overhang player, right? They don't have 2 players here in the boundary. They just have 1. So they're giving you a little more space in that boundary to work. So we're going to see a zone read here from Auburn. And that fullback is going to cross the set and ultimately slip past the defensive end and lead up on that next linebacker. Now, we see here how that linebacker, he's going to try, he's got to be outside shoulder. He's trying to get to that outside shoulder. But there's so much space to work, and I think especially on a Canadian field, if you get a team that's going to match you numbers in the box, especially if you're a good running team and teams aren't going to want to let you be +1, match you to the numbers to the field, you're going to get that big open space in the boundary. Okay, and we see what that could look like here. Simple zone read, pull. That quarterback's out in space, first down. Similar look we're going to see here from Auburn, where they have the trips to the field with a tight end. And in this case, we're going to look at more of a gap scheme. So again, when you see a team that's going to defend the numbers to the field, we got 4 players over 3. Okay, they're defending those numbers to the field. They give us a bit of an overhang with number 2. Okay, but we're going to put this player under a ton of stress because really he's responsible for this D gap as well as some kind of quick throw or bubble screen to the field because they want to make sure they have the verticals covered down. So they're playing you fair numbers in the box. We're going to read out this DB who's shaded, or Sam linebacker is shaded on number 3 here. And they're going to run a little RPO with a bubble screen to try and take advantage of those numbers in the box. Number 2's playing at safety depth. Number 2's playing at that safety depth. He's really not in a great position to fit the run. It's going to create great angles for our offensive line, doubling back down to that Mike, pulling through for the will. But the key is here, they're threatening multiple parts of the field. They're going to threaten the field side flat with the bubble and the boundary side of the formation with the 2 pullers, and they're going to read this linebacker. Okay, really, you could argue, hey, you could turn and throw this, right? Or, we see here that they end up ultimately, he's playing pretty low. They don't back anybody else up. Quarterback's reading through this defender, sees the spaces better in the boundary, gives it to the back. Very similar look here. Tight end to the field, again, is covered up. He's not eligible, but he's creating a gap. Here we see Mississippi State really defending those numbers to the field. A lot of times when you get an unbalanced formation, people assume that the ball is going towards those numbers, right? You can just as easily attack the other side of the field if you're able to read a defender or make sure that you're attacking that boundary side of the field or that lower number side of the field when they give you that space. Okay, here we see they have 5 defenders for these 4 receivers, including the tight end, or the gaps that they create. They're giving us the box to the boundary here. Again, they run the counter tray. Again, now they're, instead of doing a bubble screen, they're just doing a little stick concept, but they got 4 over 3. So we're going to give the ball take this thing to the boundary, put it in the end zone. Here you get a good look from the tight, right? This guy's responsible for the B gap. They got nobody else out there. We're going to read this guy and make sure that he doesn't, really try and shoot this over to the boundary or come underneath it. As long as he stays, we're going to give the football, and we're vertical into the second level. Now, one of the consistent things that we've seen so far is that all these formations have started unbalanced. Here, we're going to start in a balanced formation, but what makes it unbalanced to me is that there's no player on the line of scrimmage outside of the offensive tackle in the boundary. Here we see this fullback off the line of scrimmage, okay, and now this slot back is on the line of scrimmage. So he is ineligible, right? He's a blocker to the front side, but he's ineligible. You can't throw him the ball, but he gives us another person that we can add into some sort of bubble screen or run to the field. You can obviously motion and change who's on the line of scrimmage, things like that to create a different look. But what I want you to see here is Michigan gets to it by motioning. I think in the Canadian game, this is something you could really take advantage of. Here they run a little split zone RPO. At the snap of the ball, we're going to be able to read one of these defenders. And if they play the box, we're going to be able to throw this bubble screen. Okay? We're attacking the box space and to the field. We're really wasting the defense's two defenders here and here. We're not threatening them at all. We're going to wind up playing, in this case, 11 on 9. Get the ball into the flat. It's about 2nd and 17. They get themselves into a manageable third down. When you look at it from the tight, in terms of what they're trying to do with the RPO, is the RPO just allows them post-snap to continue to attack the space the defense is giving them. So they're running the split zone, right? They don't add anybody dropping out with this motion. So we're going to turn, throw the motion. Hits the bubble. Not perfect, but it's a good look. This builds on that idea. There's no motion here, but again, we are attacking the area of the field that the defense is giving us. Pre-snap, this defense is fine in the box, right? We got 7 gaps, 7 defenders, but the space they're giving us is to the field. This linebacker's in conflict. He can either drop underneath the pass or he can fill his D gap. He can't do both. So we see here they run a little base inside zone. Again, essentially in this scheme, these two players are useless to the defense. He doesn't matter, okay? And he doesn't matter. All we're looking to do is isolate these underneath defenders with the route concept. We're going to take them away, right? We get the outside release fade, a little stick concept. He steps up to play the run, which he has to because he's responsible for the D gap. And we get a great yak opportunity because we're catching the ball in space in a fractured defense. So we see it again here. 45 is going to be responsible for the D gap. He does his job, but the unbalanced formation has created more targets than they can account for to the field without creating that huge space that we've seen attacked in the previous couple clips to the boundary. And it creates a great opportunity for yak, again, because that defense is fractured. Now we're going to see a couple examples similar to the last one where the ball is actually going to get thrown or we have the option to throw the ball. Again, these looks are all about taking advantage of what the defense is going to give you, and it creates situations the defense doesn't defend against every day. Okay, so again, here we're looking at this defense. They're giving up numbers to the field. Okay. We have potentially 1, 2, 3, 4 blockers to the field, right? If one of these guys runs a bubble screen, there's 3 blockers plus the ball carrier. We've got 2 guys with leverage out here, high safety. Everyone else is really keyed in on the box. So we'll see here, they're going to run that little inside zone variation we saw before where you read the end. Okay, they're attacking that boundary side space. If the end chases to account for that, now they're going to put the ball out to the field. They throw the little slip out to the tight end. That could just as easily be a bubble screen. And now we see, especially if we do a little bit better job blocking here, 1, 2, 3, we got the corner blocked. It's us and the free safety. Okay, very, very solid play. Second thing you can look for out of this is use motion to take advantage of a defense's response. So here, Auburn goes unbalanced line and an unbalanced formation. They've got a tackle moved over here to play the tight end spot and a tight end over here at the tackle spot. But we see here, Mississippi State, they've got 1 second level player, 2 second level players to the field. Okay, one's a linebacker, one's a safety. They already have enough guys as if there was a receiver out here. When they motion, the defense still moves with the motion. They're outnumbered in the boundary, right? We got a tight end, we got a fullback, we got another receiver who can block. And as we string that motion, we see here how they get these 2 pullers out and around. If this tackle doesn't miss this block, we're going to walk into the end zone. We still get in there. But when you have guys outnumbered, which you can do with these kind of unbalanced formations, you stress the defense's ability to communicate that they don't even need to track with this motion. They already have a safety over there. So now they're running the ball to the boundary behind everyone on their offense except for this receiver. We got 1, 2, 3 defenders clearly to the middle of the field. And really, we almost have a 4th here that's being affected by that motion, right? He's ultimately late, not able to get there. So you can be creative. You don't just have to outnumber people to the field. You can align it into the boundary and try and get numbers in your run game or RPO game that way. And kind of the last thing I wanted to look at is you can throw the ball out of these types of sets too. One of the big advantages I see to having an unbalanced formation but not an unbalanced offensive line is whatever type of protections that you normally run in your pass game, your 6-man, 7-man, even empty, you don't have to make any changes to your pass protections in order to stay sound. Typically when you go unbalanced line and you have a tight end playing tackle, you might not trust that guy one-on-one on a defensive end in pass rush. Well, here you have 2 offensive linemen on either side of the center, so you can run your half slide, you can run your man scheme, your big on big, whatever you're looking for. Okay, here Michigan's running a base 7-man pro. You can keep those same protections. You can also attack vertically or create those horizontal stretches with now an extra number of receivers. My one thing that I would put advice on is if you're going to go with vertical pass game out of this unbalanced set, covering up your tight end is usually your easiest way to go. So here, these 3 receivers are eligible because none of them are on the line. This tight end who's on the line is ineligible because the wideout's on the line of scrimmage. So here, right, you got a predominantly run-based formation. You're probably going to get some kind of cover 1, maybe even some man. Teams are really playing the run. You can go play action. Here, Michigan just runs post-wheel concept. Everyone has it in their repertoire. But you can see the confusion on defense based on, okay, who's got what. This guy's ineligible, right? So if you're playing coverage over here, right, he shouldn't be factoring into anything. This guy shouldn't be stepping up at all. He should be able to carry this out route. He's there looking, half splitting the tight end, maybe looking at the back. Ultimately, we have 3 vertical routes to the field. In quarters, you're probably going to have 2 vertical players on each side of the field, and that's exactly what we see here. So he triggers on the out, okay, and they're able to get the post in behind. Second safety's out of position because, again, we're stressing that one side of the field. Similar idea here. Here they go full slide pro. Again, they have the tight end of the field. So he's covered up. He's ineligible. Can we get those 3 verticals? Stresses the defense, creates space, throw the ball. It doesn't have to be pure run. And again, there's great play action opportunities and chances to flood zones off of that. The other thing is you can be just as creative out of these types of sets as you are in any of your base offense. I find that a lot of times when I've seen unbalanced line in the Canadian game, it's been a little more tailored towards short yardage, trying to run the football. Here we see Auburn execute a great tunnel screen. So they go hard play action into the boundary. Again, they're trying to attack the area where the defense gives them space, right? We saw earlier how they were attacking the boundary using the fullback as a lead blocker. Here the defense has shifted the linebackers with the fullback. They're leaving that boundary safety over there. This creates a 3-on-3 to the field. And now we have numbers. We can go attack those numbers. Throws a tunnel screen. And you're able to get, when you get the O-line out involved in that tunnel screen, now you have, 2 blocking receivers, 2 or 3 blocking offensive linemen, and now you have them way outnumbered at the point of attack. So taking a look at this in the Canadian context, and looking at how we can use our Canadian rules in terms of motion and guys on the field to create challenges for the defense here. This is a tough thing to defend in the Canadian game, and something I think you're going to see a lot more of, as this stuff kind of filters up from the States, as it sometimes does. Here, this is similar to the look Michigan was using with that X receiver off the line of scrimmage. I really like this because most teams, when you get 31-2 back, have a tough choice to make. They don't like going one-on-one in the boundary, again, because that creates space. They're in the business of taking away space. So they don't want to leave that guy one-on-one. Now, especially when you're able to now move him to the opposite side of the field, you may play some teams that will still leave both DBs over there, or they may try and rotate, and it can be a bit of a challenge for them. So here, typically, this is how we'd see a lot of teams play 31-2 back. You could make this guy a tight end if you wanted to. That really creates problems for the defense as well. You may see, hold or on the other side so that they can have this half in a little more of a run support situation. But either way, looking at this, we've got numbers to the field. We want to attack the field. The easiest thing you can do, in my opinion, and this would be the simplest version, would be simply to run this guy in some sort of jet sweep. You can, have the O-line, fake the opposite way. Maybe you drop, just your zone working into the boundary, and you're able to, have the tight end and the fullback leak to the field and lead block for that jet sweep, and you have the back action after just as a fake to hold the linebackers. But you're going to create, this is tough for this defensive end, right? If you get a DN that plays shuffle the way you should be able to get the edge on this. You could also just as easily, have the tight end block down on him and have your fullback work up to your Sam linebacker. These guys should fit downhill in the run. And now even if they're tracing over the top, that's a long way to go and a lot of space. You're going to create a numbers advantage because this guy doesn't have a gap. Okay, his gap is on the other side of the field, but usually defenses, if they don't HBO, right, they're not going to leave that boundary available to you. So that'd be the simplest thing I'd look at is just, your base jet sweep game. And then obviously you can run different run actions with the fake jet sweep. The second thing I'd look at doing while you're trying to attack the field, so you're getting a team that's leaving, its resources in the boundary, whether that's they're playing hold, so they can't take the half out of there because he's in there for run support, or even if they're playing some sort of cut look and they're going to rotate. So say when you get that jet sweep or bubble screen action, they're going to rotate down to it. If they're still leaving that corner, lots of different things you could do, but I think the option that we saw Michigan run, where they're going to run the split zone and really try and, focus on this backside cutback, some people call it backside zone, where they're really not looking front side of the center unless they got to go there, and then they're going to read that Sam linebacker. Gives you a lot of great options, just simply in terms of you're creating a seventh gap, and if he fills it, well, now we're throwing the ball out to the X on the orbit screen. Okay, if he stays out of it, even if they rotate the free safety well, right? Or if he just hesitates stepping into it, you're getting downhill right away. We saw how that can be effective. So by forcing teams to defend the field, whether you use that the jet sweep or the bubble screen RPO, you're really going to force teams into a situation where are they going to match your numbers, or are they going to continue to let you attack them to the field? The other option would be, for me, that I could really see being effective is covering that tight end like we talked about. So the tight end's ineligible, right? There's your fullback. How are teams going to account for that space? You might get some sort of double overhang or some sort of too high kind of look like that, almost a quarters look. If you can run a basic RPO like we saw there, it was almost, all stops, right? Or a stick concept. Anything where you have, those multiple flat routes where you're creating a horizontal stretch on this halfback, this Sam linebacker is really going to be forced into trying to defend the D gap as well as get underneath that hook. So whether you run, the counter scheme that we saw Auburn run into the boundary, where you're reading that Sam linebacker, you could put a ton of stress on them from a horizontal standpoint to the field in that sense. And that doesn't even get into, just running power towards those numbers and cracking receivers down and adding gaps that way. You're going to force teams to choose whether they're going to keep giving that up or whether they're going to start to take their chances and give you some space to work in the boundary. So you could also see teams, when you motion that X receiver, maybe they're going to match numbers now. So when that X receiver runs the bubble, maybe they leave, the proper number of guys. Say they string the fullback, get some kind of look like this. You got your corner, your field half, and say they HBO, they bring the boundary half over. Maybe now that free safety is becoming the fourth player outside the box to add there. And now the corner is going high to again cover those verticals that we talked about. Now it's all about attacking the boundary and trying to create numbers. And to me, the simplest way to do that just be to have your fullback go block the outside linebacker and run a really simple zone read. And again, you can't call all these plays at one time, but if you could package some combination so you have an option to, maybe pre-snap. I know a lot of teams are doing that. They'll run the bubble. And then if no one adjusts, they'll throw the RPO. If at the snap of the ball they have an adjustment, so they're motioning with it, then they'll run that backside zone read. It's just taking some of the advantages we use in, say, a 31 set or a 41 set and really doubling down on that and creating a different surface for the defense. In terms of passing the ball out of this in the Canadian game, I think with unlimited motion, you have so many options and so many different ways to try and create conflict in the defense. I think the number one way that I would go about it would be just play actions off those bubble screens. So if my base play that I'm attacking them with is that split zone RPO, I would go with a full slide pro into the boundary, have my fullback lock up the end, still have my X run the bubble. So you're looking at, full slide in this, hopefully getting that response you want from the defense. And then now, you've been throwing this bubble. If you get that free safety rotation, he's coming down, try and take on that bubble screen. This guy can even sell the block because he can't release. So he can't get 5 yards downfield, but he can go make it look like he's going to try and sell that block, right? These guys can now run your typical and go, however you want to do that, and now try and get them biting up on this bubble screen and taking a shot. But with the motion rules, really, you can get into a lot of your more mainstream concepts as well. The other simple one would be same idea. Make it look like you're running that RPO on that overhang defender. So if you're running a lot of RPO, when the defense sees the ball get pulled, they're going to expect some kind of quick throw. Right now, you could work your, if you've been running, say, the out, you could have him come back and run a kind of hinge route of the sticks. You could also just run your stop and go stuff on the outside. Again, getting teams who are trying to drive those RPO routes and take advantage of it. But it's one of those things that I think is growing in the game of football in general and being creative with formations. And it's something with the Canadian rules in terms of motion that you can run a lot of your base principles, whether it's power, counter, inside zone, outside zone, jet sweep, bubble screen, things that we see a ton. And it's the kind of thing that you can add. It's simple for your offense, and you can pick and choose what pieces you want, but it's complicated for the defense to defend because it's not something they see every week, and it's not something that they've grown up having to defend. So it's an interesting part of the game that I think we're going to see more of, and something I think Canadian coaches should be looking to add to their offense.